waiting to do that for a long time. Like I said in the last video, the next step for the Civic is installing the rear suspension. As I showed in a previous video, all of it is powder coated. So we have like this trailing arm right here all powder coated. We have the spindles all powder coated. We have the rear lower control arms all powder coated. It's all a, you know, like a chassis black finish. So it should look really nice against the gray underside of the car. Last week I installed these rear trailing arm bushings, and it actually wasn't too bad with a press. They're marked with an arrow to the lower part of the bushing, and then the longer side, there's a longer side of the bushing, that goes on the inside. So it's not too bad, and I even heated up the arm and put these in the freezer just to make it go in that much easier. So the plan now is to go through and figure out what bolts are needed for the rear suspension. This pile of bolts here is pretty much for the entire underside of the car, including the gas tank and the rear e-brake cables, front suspension, rear suspension. So I want to go through and figure out what goes here, and I'll probably end up just threading on what I can, and then what I can't thread on, I'll probably just tape to the part or bag and tag or something just to get this organized. There's also a few parts that weren't powder coated because they were just so small that I'm probably going to end up refinishing with just some paint, and I might even put it in some evapor rust to get the rust off of it. We're also going to be putting the rear brakes on the car with the suspension, and I want to get the e-brake cable hooked up because currently the rear dolly is what actually has the locking wheels. So if we remove that rear dolly from the car and we have the rear suspension on, I want to be able to make sure I can pull the e-brake and lock everything up. So it's been a few hours since I got done organizing all the bolts. Took a little longer than expected to get all that sorted out. I ended up sorting out the front suspension bolts as well. So I got those all right here, and then I have a bolt box over here with everything bagged and tagged. So we got just the splash shield clips. Yeah, the gas tank strap hardware, because they got like those weird J hooks right there. So I got those. I also dug up the brake parts, rear brake pads. Obviously we got the hubs, showed those already. And the rear brake calipers right here. I was surprised, I forgot that it came with this bracket right here, because this little bracket's for the e-brake cable. It's actually discontinued from Honda. And before I opened that box, I had started soaking the old ones in evapor rust. I also put the bushings for the lower control arms in evapor rust because they have a bunch of rust. Let me see if I can get it on camera. They have a bunch of rust embedded in them. It's pretty disgusting. So the evapor rust bottle says that it's safe for rubber. So we're gonna see how that turns out. Unfortunately, those bushings are pretty far back ordered. I think it's like 6 to 8 weeks from Prothane. So we're gonna try to work with what we have, at least for now. I also have the hardware to mount the spindle to the trailing arm. So we're just gonna soak those, get those looking a little nicer. And then once all that's done, we'll be able to mount the spindle to the trailing arm. And I think that's all we're gonna do. We'll probably install the hubs too. Or we'll probably install the hubs on the car too, because it's honestly so easy. It's so easy, they just slide right on. So we'll probably wait to do that, just so it's as light as possible, handling it under the car. Don't wanna risk scrape anything or scratching up the new paint. Also cleaned up these little pieces here. They go somewhere around here. I think they cover up the spring down there, so they should bolt on. We should have some, actually we have the bolts right there. They're in the evapor rust. So yeah, I'll check back in with you guys when this stuff is done soaking. Hopefully the bushings look pretty good, and then we can press the bushings in the arm, head over to the shop and start assembling the rear suspension.
What we do here is go back.